So for the past 2.5 years, I've seen the same argument arise again and again and again. This game has had no shortage of people complaining about its PvPvE nature, especially alongside its new release on Steam, and unfortunately, few of these conversations have facilitated genuine discussion over name-calling, dismissal, and patronization on both sides. Given that fact, this video will serve to go through the fundamental design of Sea of Thieves to explain exactly why you can be attacked at any time. So the first thing to identify is what the developers actually aim to accomplish with this game, and what I believe to be its strongest element: player interaction. The reason this game is open world and why it's PvPvE is the goal to create emergent stories almost entirely comprised of real players' actions. Whether it's tales of unexpected friendship, betrayal, redemption, overcoming unlikely odds, or simply sharing a tankard of grog, the way player motivations clash and the freedom that surrounds it is what allows such stories to organically transpire. That comes at a cost though, because I understand many players have started off with less than stellar stories to tell, whether it was being spawn camped by a crew slating you, or getting sunk before you even realized that you needed to defend yourself. Before you have one of those special sessions that makes your heart rush or mouth grin from ear to ear, the ones that got most of us hooked on the game, it can be hard to back this kind of a system when only having experienced the bad. And I do understand that. Regardless, it is important to recognize what this game is meant to cater before trying to change it to fit your preferences. And next we'll go into exactly why changes can tarnish that intention. This next point builds off the back of my last, how the game was made from the ground up to facilitate player interaction. However, I do believe this one has pertinence towards a much more tangible aspect of the game. I'm specifically talking about risk versus reward, being the basis of how Sea of Thieves awards loot. At the beginning of every session, players decide what activities to set out to do by weighing how much they want to earn with how much they don't want to get pirated. Voyages, for example, remain the lowest risk activity, seeing as they're able to forego certain islands if other crews are there, and sell at any time without consequence. On the flip side, forts are broadcasted to the entire server and require you to see it all the way through if you want its spoils. The advantages and disadvantages of these events are then contrasted with the spoils they yield, with forts proving more lucrative, but neither stand out as inherently more difficult than the other. The differentiating factor between activities then is the extent to which it attracts other players to intervene. Forts will obviously entail contestation from those looking to benefit off your work or complete the task themselves. This dynamic is prevalent to many other aspects of the game too. Flying an emissary flag increases spoils but consequently makes you a more appealing target. Thieves' Haven runs are more lucrative than regular Athena voyages, but concentrate you around one region, making you easy to locate. The Devil's Roar poses a more challenging environment, but rewards you with a greater gold yield and isolates you from the rest of the map and its players. What this all means is that if you were to remove players from the world, the risk versus reward system breaks down and objectively superior sources of gold arise with no downsides. Why wouldn't you endlessly stack for the damned loot? What makes a Reaper's chest different to any other chest? Why is loot hauling impressive? The PvE in this game doesn't and could never adequately replace the risks imposed by real players, at least not to the same extent with varying motivations and methods. Now you may have reached this part of the video with one simple question remaining. Why does this all matter? I mean, sure, the game may want to cater player interaction, and sure, the game's reward system may be based around threats from other players, but I don't care about any of that. Why can't I just play the game my way? It is a fair question, because usually when making changes to a game, whether through mods or a difficulty setting, little is negatively affected besides maybe tarnishing the artistic vision of the developers. A unique issue arises with Sea of Thieves, however, because many of the requests against PvP would kill the game for half the player base. It's Sea of Thieves, not Sea of Friends. It's a phrase tossed around constantly, and we're all sick of hearing it. That said, there is an argument to be made beyond simply pointing out the name of the game. When we talk about PvP in Sea of Thieves, we aren't only talking about player combat, as just fighting is often pointless and a waste of resources. So what we're actually referring to is piracy. Now let's bring PvE servers into the picture, and imagine if everyone looking to gain loot and subsequent reputation or gold was given the option to separate themselves from others whilst doing so. Public servers would only ever be filled with those looking to pirate, and consequently there'd be nothing to steal. Even those who like the PvP in this game would utilize this option in the event they want to quickly reach an emissary ledger or go on a particularly long loot haul. Some have thrown around the idea of adding incentives to public servers, but this would consequently tarnish the first point I made by restricting the type of player interactions you can have. Even ignoring the negatives that it may bring on other players, my first 2 points serve to explain why it would hurt the very people asking for this addition, by breaking the game's reward system and removing the very thing it was made to facilitate. Pursuit towards mass appeal is a frequent complaint sent towards the usual AAA game releases nowadays, which is why I feel so many have latched on to Sea of Thieves, as it provides such a unique adventure not offered by many games. Without getting into a long rant about the state of the video game industry, I think we all owe it to Rare, even if you're not a fan of what the game offers, to support developers who take risks to provide something new, rather than playing it safe for the sake of money. With all that said, to conclude, I think it's safe to say that despite all the bickering and resentment between different parts of the player base, in an ironic way, we all need each other, much more than I think anyone realizes. Thank you very much for watching. There were a fair few points I couldn't get to, so I can answer any questions below in the comments, and that applies to any rebuttals as well if wanting to discuss it in further length. The judgment I pass towards the average debate on this topic extends to this video as well, so whilst asking everyone to be civil, I highly encourage discussion, especially if you don't agree with me. If you want more analytical videos towards all aspects of Sea of Thieves, check out the rest of my content and subscribe for future ones.